You cannot build a nuclear weapon without a machine precise enough to shape its components. America built that machine in Sidney, Ohio. Then America shipped it to the Soviet Union. Both superpowers spent the Cold War running the same lathe from the same small town. In 1882, two men named Benjamin Sebastian and Jacob May founded a small lathe company in Cincinnati, Ohio. They built basic engine lathes. Nothing special. Nothing that would outlast them. In 1890, the Sidney Commercial Club, a booster organization of local businessmen, lured the company to their town with the promise of land and a new factory building. A local dry goods merchant named Ignatius Henry Thediek bought out both founders by 1893. Thediek owned a department store. He sat on half the boards in town. He was the kind of small city industrialist who understood that factories were the lifeblood of a Midwestern community. When the new owner could not repay a loan, Thediek foreclosed. He hauled the machinery and engineering drawings back to Sidney. On October 4th, 1909, the Monarch Machine Company opened in a brand new 9,960 square foot shop on North Oak Avenue. 20 men built the first lathe that same month and shipped it before Christmas. It was a modest start, a small shop in a small town building basic lathes for a market that already had plenty of suppliers. What Monarch did not have yet was the man who would turn it into something the world needed. In the spring of 1912, Thediek hired a 28-year-old former salesman from the National Cash Register Company in Dayton. His name was Wendell Whipp. He had no engineering training. He had never built a machine tool. What he had was an education in the most advanced commercial training program in American industry. NCR taught its salesmen profit sharing, group insurance, employee welfare programs, and above all the belief that a product's quality was inseparable from the organization that built it. Whipp had married Thediek's daughter. She died of pneumonia shortly after the wedding. He was 28 years old, a widower with no children, and he never remarried. He poured everything into the company. For the next 45 years, Monarch was his entire life, and the workforce was what he called the Monarch family. Under Whipp, the philosophy changed immediately. Instead of competing on price against bigger shops in Cincinnati and Cleveland, Monarch began over-engineering its lathes, more cast iron, heavier beds, tighter tolerances. Whipp understood something that would define the company for the next 80 years. Rigidity and accuracy command a premium. A cheap lathe cuts metal. A Monarch held metal to a standard. By 1917, with the Allies desperate for munitions, Monarch was shipping over 2,000 lathes a year. Revenue topped $1 million. By 1918, production hit 3,000 lathes for the year, and Sidney, Ohio, a town most Americans had never heard of, was one of the most important manufacturing hubs in the country. The 1920s brought more milestones. Monarch engineers introduced the first helical geared lathe headstock in the United States in 1923. Helical gears run quieter than straight-cut spur gears, transfer power more smoothly, and produce a superior surface finish on the workpiece. In October 1927, Monarch introduced Timken tapered roller bearings on the spindle at the Cleveland Machine Tool Show. They were the first lathe builder in the industry to do so. Each of these advances sounds incremental. Together, they represented a complete reinvention of what a lathe could do. Then the Depression hit. The stock market crash of 1929 annihilated capital spending across American industry. Factories stopped buying machines. Monarch's order books went effectively to zero. The obvious move was to lay off the engineering team, conserve cash, and wait for the storm to pass. Whipp refused. He cut his own salary by 1/3 and encouraged others to do the same. Then he directed his engineers to design the machines of the future, in a factory with nothing to build. It was an enormous gamble. If the market did not come back, Monarch would burn through its reserves and die. The engineers kept working. In 1930, Monarch introduced the Keller form turning machine, a tracer lathe that used a physical stylus to follow a template and reproduce complex shapes automatically. In 1937, they patented flame-hardened and ground beds, a process that would become a Monarch trademark for the next 60 years. Every one of these innovations came out of the Depression. Every one of them came from engineers who were being paid to think while the factory floor sat silent. In June 1938, engineering work started on the machine that would define the company forever. The specifications came from Western Electric Company in Chicago, who needed a precision lathe for their instrument work. Clifford Bickle designed it. The first machine, serial number E6156, was built on December 21, 1938. Monarch had invested nearly $100,000 in development, a staggering sum for a Depression-era lathe company. The result was the Monarch 10EE, a 10-inch toolroom lathe unlike anything the industry had ever seen. Its cast iron housing was sculpted in the streamlined modern vocabulary of the late 1930s. Smooth curves, horizontal banding, teardrop dials. It looked more like industrial sculpture than a machine tool. That was deliberate. Monarch wanted to elevate the tool and die maker, from shop floor laborer to elite artisan. The 10EE was the machine that said this work matters. It was also, by any measure, absurdly overbuilt. The 10EE weighed 3,250 pounds. Its footprint was only 29 inches by 60 inches. All that mass was engineered to absorb vibration and deliver flawless surface finishes at tolerances of 1/10,000th of an inch. The drive system was revolutionary. The original machines used a variable speed unit that allowed the operator to dial in any spindle speed from 25 to 2,500 revolutions per minute without stopping to change gears or belts. No other lathe on the American market could do that. Over its production life, the 10EE went through 5 completely different motor drive technologies: Sunstrand hydrostatic, Reliance motor generator, Thyrotron vacuum tube, solid-state module, AC inverter drive, 5 generations of electronics inside the same cast iron body. A 1942 10EE sent to the factory today comes back with a modern AC motor inside an unchanged streamline housing. The machine outlasted every technology used to power it. By December 1941, the United States was at war. The demand for machine tools exploded overnight. The War Production Board needed machines that were versatile, fast to set up, and precise enough to manufacture weapons components to exact specifications. The 10EE met every requirement. One of the largest single wartime orders placed with Monarch was Defense Production Corporation Order Number 480, 805 Model EE lathes in a single order. The factory on North Oak Avenue ran around the clock, 7 days a week. The workforce, which had been around 700 before the war, reached 2,700 by December 1942. Production that year reached 8,116 lathes, the largest single-year output in Monarch's history. Monarch received the Army-Navy E Award for excellence in production. The company received it 6 times over the course of the war. Only 5% of American war contractors ever received even one. Then the United States did something that would define the 10EE's legacy in a way nobody anticipated. Under the Lend-Lease program, America shipped billions of dollars worth of equipment to the Soviet Union to support the Allied war effort. Among that equipment were Monarch 10EE lathes, dozens of them. Russian machinists received them in munitions factories across the Soviet Union. They ran them the same way American machinists ran them, precisely, reliably, for decades. After the war, when the Cold War began, and both superpowers started building nuclear arsenals, the 10EE was already on both sides. American weapons laboratories ran them. Soviet weapons factories ran them. The most precise toolroom lathe in American history was machining components for both sides of the most dangerous arms race in human history. Neither government publicized this. Neither side advertised it. It was simply the consequence of a decision made during a wartime alliance that nobody thought to reverse. The most precise machine in the room is always the one nobody talks about. Whipp died on April 27, 1957, at the age of 73. It was a boating accident at Monarch's own rod and gun club. He was still serving as chairman of the board. He had led the company since 1912 through 2 world wars, a depression, and a complete technological transformation of the industry. He had no heirs. His estate included shares of Monarch stock he had donated to establish what became the Community Foundation of Shelby County. The man who built Monarch into the largest dedicated lathe manufacturer in the Western Hemisphere died alone at the company fishing club, still in the chair. The company he built survived him by 40 years before it fell. Competition from Japanese manufacturers in the late 1970s and 1980s was brutal. Yamazaki Mozak, Moriseki, and Okuma. Their machines were competitively priced, delivered fast, and good enough for most applications. Monarch's response was to build machines designed to last a century, priced accordingly. For most manufacturers, good enough, delivered fast, beat magnificent on a 6-month lead time. Monarch filed for bankruptcy in 1997. The factory that had built 8,000 lathes in a single wartime year closed its doors on North Oak Avenue. But the 10EE refused to die. In 1997, Monarch Lathes LP was formed from the remaining assets. Harry Camp, a 20-year Monarch service technician, became president in 1999 and expanded the operation from parts and service into full factory remanufacturing of 10EE lathes to original specifications. In June 2022, Matt Albrecht purchased the company. Camp stayed on as president. That year, Monarch Lathes delivered a fully remanufactured 10EE for service aboard a United States Navy aircraft carrier. A machine conceived in 1938, built on the same floor where it was born, updated with a modern AC inverter drive, and sent to sea to maintain the most complex warships on Earth. Over 15,000 10EE lathes were built during the model's production run. A rebuilt 10EE from the modern Sydney facility commands over $100,000. The physics department at MIT uses them. Machinists on forums dedicated to their restoration have written tens of thousands of threads about their care, operation, and repair. One assessment captures the consensus: built to a standard, not down to a price point. Wendell Whipp came to Sydney in 1912 with a dead wife, no children, and a salesman's education. He built Monarch into the largest dedicated lathe manufacturer in the Western Hemisphere. He armed 2 wars. He kept his engineers employed through a depression that killed most of his competitors. The machines they designed in that empty factory became the foundation of everything that followed. He died at the company fishing club, still in the chair. The company he built outlasted him by 40 years before it fell. The machines he built are still cutting metal in shipyards, aerospace labs, weapons facilities, and home garages around the world. The same lathe that shaped components for America's nuclear arsenal shaped components for the Soviet arsenal too. Both sides needed the most precise machine they could find. The most precise machine they could find came from Sidney, Ohio, a town of 20,000 people in the middle of farm country that built the machine both superpowers needed and never got credit for either one.